And a hello and a beautiful Tuesday to you. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. My name is James Faunt Leroy. I am so glad to have you with us on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe there. Also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there on Sundays and Thursdays. If you have not already, you can also subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. That alerts you of all email notifications of whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. So you have that there as well. If you have not already, go ahead and give the stream a like. That pushes me out into the algorithm. I thank you so very much in advance for that. So it is so good to see all of you here with me today. By the way, just a general hello to the entire audience. I would love to say my individual hellos to you. We'll get to that in a little while, but in respect for my guests' time, we will be going straight into it. So I would like to introduce Green Party presidential candidate for President of the United States, Dr. Jill Stein joins me here today for the first time on the channel. Welcome. So good to have you.
So great to be with you finally. I've been watching you from afar, so it's great to actually be one-on-one here.
She had the binoculars on. She was like, hey, there's that guy over there. So, Dr. Stein, I just want to, this is your first time on my channel speaking with me, especially in regards to your presidential run. Of course, as we know, we are, let me see, March, April, May, June, July. So about seven months away from the actual election that's going to be going on in regards to, the running of this country, and you're running right now. Quite I would say, not an assertive campaign to really get on the ballot. And one of the first questions that I had is in regards to ballot access. Looking at your website, currently as of March 25th, you have ballot access right now in 20 states, and you're actively petitioning in 23 right now. If you were to get all of them within the allotted time, you would have 43 states. What is some of your biggest obstacles in your view in getting more attention and eyes on your campaign?
So let me just also add that there are several states in which you can't run yet, but we will be running for them all. So we are on track to be a 50-state campaign plus DC. So you could say a 51-state campaign, because it should be a state. But that's our presumption. And we were on the ballot in 47 states in 2016 and for 97% of voters. And we are on track right now to be on all of those ballots. And your question there, James, you wanted to know, like, sort of what's the thrust of our campaign? What was your first question there?
The first question was really, what is the biggest obstacles in your view in getting more attention and eyes on your campaign?
So, there's kind of a blanket suppression campaign going on to undermine political competition, because the parties of war on Wall Street, I think they recognize their days are numbered and that they have lost popular support. And certainly the Democratic Party has lost its base, having thrown working people under the bus for quite some time now. And their base has been badly eroded. 2010, they lost 1,000 seats in state legislatures. They lost 64 seats in Congress. They lost 14 Senate seats and 12 governorships. So they've really been kind of on the defensive for quite a while.
Yeah.
And they try to blame it on third parties. But of course, there were no third parties in 2010 when they had their biggest wipeout ever. So, that's what this is about. Their base is moving on because people are tired of being thrown under the bus. But they are doing everything in their power. In fact, they announced recently, article in the New York Times just a couple of days ago, that they are hiring an army of corporate lawyers to try to, keep us off the ballot, to try to find technicalities to throw us out. And they've also announced, this wasn't in the Times, but another article about this, announced that they would be, trying to highlight the unsavory aspects of our character, they said, AKA smear campaigns. This is like not new. This is what they always do. And their effort to throw Matthew Ho off the ballot, he was running for Senate as a Green in, I think it was 2020 or it was 2022, I think.
Yeah.
And, they made the mistake. They were impersonating Greens and calling people who had signed the petitions, asking them to please request to have their names taken off. And they made the mistake of calling the chair, one of the co-chairs of the North Carolina Green Party. And he recorded the conversation. It's hysterical. We will be promoting that again, just to show people what to expect when the Democrats say that they are trying to complicate our ballot access campaigns. This is what they do. They resort to dirty tricks because they know that they're defeated already from the get-go, that the American people really are done. They're done being thrown under the bus in the way that they are by both political parties. The Democrats have pretended to be the lesser evil for quite some time, but they're not, and even when they've had a trifecta controlling the White House and the Congress, they're serving their Wall Street masters, which is what happened in 2008 with the big crash, the crash of the economy and the Wall Street bailouts while homeowners got thrown out. So in a nutshell, the powers that be are trying to silence their competition. So there are inordinate hoops to jump through, but we've done it before. And we're in the process of doing it now. And I encourage people, if you want to fight the power, if you want to overturn oligarchy and empire that go hand in hand, join, check us out. Go to JillStein2024.com because we have a big team. People are really mobilized this time around for all kinds of reasons. The numbers of people that are clamoring for an independent party are off the charts at a record high. The number of people who identify as independent of the two Wall Street parties is twice as many as the number who identify as either Democrat or Republican. And our lives are just really a series of converging crises right now. Who's not in crisis? Do you know anyone who's not in crisis in some way right now? Whether it's student debt, whether it's the cost of healthcare, and by the way, Joe Biden, like Barack Obama, have been very busy privatizing Medicare. So, the one system that we have that's really the best and the model for what should be generalized to everyone, they've been on the attack there and serving the interests of pharmaceutical companies and big insurers. 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Half of renters are struggling just to keep a roof over their heads and are severely financially stressed. And there they are. They're very busy giving away the store. They just, passed this budget, this 2024 fiscal year budget, which in fact is 60 some percent for either war or militarized programs in sort of military and policing and security. That's where our dollars are going, and they say there's not enough dollars to keep children out of poverty or to help provide affordable housing and the things that we desperately need. But they've got all the money in the world for the next war and for genocide, in fact. And the bill that was just passed is really a child starvation bill. It's absolutely outrageous. It appropriates like $3.8 billion for Israel and this continuing genocidal assault. But there's another bill, for $17 billion that will provide even more resources for Israel to continue conducting this war in the Middle East. So, just making the point here, I'm expanding into several other topics I'm sure we'll get to. But to make the point, the American people are done being thrown under the bus, which is why the powers that be, the ruling parties, are trying to, to basically eliminate us and to bury us in, they're trying to disappear us in so many words. They don't want people to know that they have other options. And then they try to smear voters who want to stand up and vote on their own behalf instead of taking marching orders that you're supposed to be good little boys and girls and keep voting for the predators that are throwing you under the bus. People are done with that and ready to move on.
Yeah, of course. I mean, one of the things that has been one of the biggest gripes, especially with a lot of us, and what a lot of us, when I'm speaking of, is those of us who are poor and working poor. Because a lot of times people put the emphasis on, for instance, the middle class. Oh, the middle class of our country, and people leave people like myself who are working poor and disabled out. The people who are working as janitors, people who are working as people who are behind the counter at a Wendy's, right? These are the people who really are harmed in our country. I'm not sure if you have noticed, but I'm right now personally in a crisis because
Mm.
my landlord is literally
Um,
selling the place where I live,
yeah.
and they're going to give us only 60 days to leave. I myself am disabled. I'm on kidney dialysis. I go to dialysis three
Mm.
days a week. My mom is 72 years old and she's elderly, and
Yeah.
she and I really don't have anywhere to go right now.
Mm.
And so, because of what we're going through, I am just a microcosm of what's really going on in this country. And so, I'm saying all that to say a TikTok ban. Really? That's one of my biggest issues. And I know you spoke about this before, but I just want to give you a chance to also talk about this with the audience as well. Is, in regards to privacy and digital rights, what is your position on HR 7521 that was authored by Wisconsin Representative Mike Gallagher,
Mhm.
nicknamed the TikTok ban bill?
Yeah, I mean, I say let's ban, billions for genocide. Let's ban APAC. Let's ban student debt. There are many more productive things we could ban. We should not be further banning our rights to free speech. And, TikTok doesn't take marching orders from the US security state like the other social media platforms do. So it's considered a particular threat by the ruling parties. So this bill proposed by Gallagher is just it's an outrage. It's an assault on free speech. It's an assault on the commons, the communications commons for the younger generation, which uses TikTok especially to communicate. So I'd say we need to ban censorship of of all the social media platforms, and we shouldn't be in the business of closing them down. This is an outrage.
Yeah, because one of the reasons why I bring this up is because even though I don't have a very large audience of those from the ages of probably 18 to 24 years old, um, their concerns are also my concerns because a lot of the future really in shambles if you look at the domestic policy that's being pushed by people like a Mike Gallagher, a Joe Biden, and not to mention, the Republican Party as well, in tandem with the Democratic Party. So I think this is one of the things that a lot of us are focused on is not necessarily, it's just like what you said, the banning of, like, for instance, student debt. I think that's one of the biggest issues that's facing us. A lot of us is in regards to housing, and I would also like to get your position regarding housing. Because one of the things I was looking at was your website, and it's kind of limited in scope as far as the issues. So, what is your position on the housing model? Because I look at nations like Finland right now, where they're doing a housing first model. What is your position in regards to housing in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just add that we do have a full platform that should be posted hopefully within the next week. So you'll start seeing the
Okay.
details of our proposals.
Okay.
Um, and also, I want to jump back just quickly before we go into housing on something you said before about the things that you are struggling with. And unfortunately, you're not the exception. Most people really are struggling either with their healthcare or their housing in particular. And then for decent wages on their job and for job security and to have a job that's not raking you over the coals, like the railroad workers, for example, who were going to strike and then were prevented from striking by our supposed labor president. And, and even the squad voted to basically destroy their fundamental right. And they have like 2 workers who are in charge of a 3-mile long train. And it's no surprise, they were forced to accept a contract that they had already rejected. They were disallowed from striking. And not long after that, you had this horrific toxic spill in East Palestine. And, because they're exhausted, because they're working 24/7, and they're working very unpredictable hours. And there are just so many ways that working people are being squeezed now, not having decent wages, not having predictable hours, having crazy unstable scheduling so that you can never really structure your life, not having healthcare, not having benefits. And Joe Biden touts, oh, we've created lots of jobs, but let's look at the kinds of jobs. These are totally unlivable jobs. And then there's all the, invisible unemployed as well. So, this is BS. Bidenomics is not doing it for us, and especially not for working people. And, it's a crime. So, I just want to marvel that you're able to do everything that you're able to do while you are dealing with an eviction crisis, basically, and a housing crisis and a healthcare crisis all in one. It's just amazing that you're able to do the journalism that you do. And so this is just a big shout out and a big thank you for being a really important voice, especially as someone who's struggling, because so many voices and people who are in struggle never have the capacity to keep it together, to be fighting the power. While you fight for your survival, you're also fighting the power. And that's just so admirable. And that's kind of like an example to us all. That's what we all have to do. We have to fight the power, and we have to fight in coalition. And so I just want to give big props to what you're doing. It's so essential. And on housing, yeah, exactly as you're saying, Finland is doing the right thing. They have a housing first policy for the homeless. Let's get the homeless housed in a permanent and stable way. And then you can begin to solve all the other problems, from drug addiction to mental health to employment. You can start to do that once you have stable housing. So yes, housing first. We also need to get housing out of the predatory commoditized market. So we have housing for people, not housing for profit. And it's the real estate industry, which of course, reigns supreme on in our lawmaking bodies, in state capitals, and in Washington, D.C. You have housing policy basically serving the interests of wealthy financial real estate interests. So that now one of the crises in housing is that big capital is buying up single family homes and converting it all into a rental market, which then, it all, helps drive up prices. And we're watching prices skyrocket. There are so many solutions to this. It's just BS to pretend that there are no good solutions. There are lots of good solutions, and they all need to be implemented. And that's everything from rent control, so that prices cannot skyrocket, to to developing quality so-called social housing, at one time called public housing. This should be quality housing, mixed income housing, stable housing, where you don't get, pushed out the minute you have a stable job and a decent income. We need to be building communities for the long haul, and, communities that are in harmony. So we're not contributing to suburban sprawl, and we're building housing along with transportation, so that we have public transportation that's undergirding the development of housing. So all the reasons that are used to push back against housing development can be addressed. These are not reasons not to go forward and build this. It's also financially feasible, and models in Austria and Finland have shown that this is feasible. It saves us money in the long run to do this right. So those are some of the details on our housing policy. I think we also need a tenant bill of rights, so that you can't have these, evictions that against which people have no protection. And to be evicting people because you want to jack up the prices, that's like two sins right there. We shouldn't be allowing the prices to skyrocket in the first place, and we shouldn't be allowing people to be evicted. I mean, eviction is a huge crisis. It is a health crisis unto itself. And there are
Yeah.
all kinds of, illness and mortality that goes up with evictions. Homelessness and evictions are I know homelessness is an all-time high. I think evictions are way up there right now as well. So this is, again, I think, another sign that we are really beyond the pale right now in what our predatory ruling parties have been allowed to get away with, because there are two of them, and they don't allow us a choice. And this is much of the motivation why we're running. And in my view, this is like a perfect storm for overthrowing corporate rule, for overthrowing empire and oligarchy, whose days are numbered, who are not only creating catastrophe after catastrophe in foreign policy, but who are also impoverishing us, consumes half of our congressional budget, and endangering us by initiating conflict after conflict in the foreign sphere.
Yeah, of course. And a lot of these companies, in regards to the buying up of homes, a lot of them are, especially companies that are private equity companies that are purchasing a lot of the homes that are going that really should be lived in within the United States. uh, would you push for a bill that would outlaw private equity from owning things like homes, healthcare facilities, and educational institutions?
Um, I'll give a qualified yes to that, just because I want to sort of, um, uh, clarify what that bill would be. But in principle, absolutely yes, that our basic necessities of life should not be commodified and should not leave us, just high and dry and subject to exploitation with no end in sight. And that's kind of the way things are going right now.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Um, Now, as far as my next question goes, and I know the answer to this question, but I want my audience to hear the answer to this question. Just shifting gears now, especially to those of us who are in marginalized communities, especially those of us who are Black people. Um, those of us who are American descendants of slaves have been asking for reparations for well over 100 years, especially since the promise by General Sherman for reparations. Do you support reparations for American descendants of slaves?
Absolutely. Yes, this is a debt owed. Um, the debt, for the labor and also the confinement and the, um, and the imprisonment and living lives of enslavement. I mean, there's a debt owed. Um, the backbone of our economy for the first, 100, 200 years, whatever, was cotton and sugar, and was really on the backs of enslaved persons who were really the engine of that economy and that prosperity, which established many of the wealthiest families in America. And this is a debt that is owed and that needs to be paid. And it didn't end with with the abolition of slavery, because then you had lynching and you had Jim Crow and you had redlining and segregation and white supremacy in various forms. So people are owed, enslaved persons are owed, or the descendants of enslaved persons. It's like economic disparities are off the chart, racial disparities in the economy, whereby, the average African American household has something like 10% of the wealth of the average Caucasian household. So these are these are huge disparities. They're not small, and they're passed on from generation to generation because there's a vicious cycle that's built in here. If you're in a poor community and you have low quality housing and you've been subject to redlining and disinvestment, you don't have a good school system, because school systems are built on the property tax, and that's another thing that we would fix. The federal government needs to equalize the resources that come to all school systems. Your quality of your schooling and your education should not depend on your zip code, as well as programs that need to provide for greater integration within our school system. But that needs to be remedied. And if you have a lousy school system, you're going to have limited access to a well-paying job, and the whole thing it's an endless cycle. That cycle has to be broken. And by the way, the economic disparities now are even worse than they were in the 1960s. So this myth of progress is really a myth. And this myth that we're in a post-racial world is also a myth. And it's BS. And we have to make this a post-racial world, but that's going to take a lot of work. So we have to begin by paying a debt owed. And, and then there's always the question, how should that be paid? And I think that those to whom this debt is owed have a lot to say about how that debt should be paid. One point of view is that there should be several options for how it gets paid, and that those options should be the choice of the enslaved person to whom the debt is owed.
Okay. What would you say to, and I'm looking at this site from the Negro Collective. They actually did some work with your campaign manager, Jason Call, in Washington State. It is, Jamin Mason and Khalif Mitchell, who I've had on a few weeks back talking about reparations. What would you say to those who say that the price to pay for reparations is way too high for the federal government? Because a lot of times you'll have people who hand wring about, we're in so much debt already, we can't afford to pay this much. And here it says in part of the resolution, it says, whereas restitution for Negroes and their descendants in the United States is estimated at least $15 trillion in cash payments, endowments, annuities, trust accounts, or other investments that will improve the well-being of those Negroes and the descendants who were harmed. What would you say to those who say that that's just too much of a burden to bear?
I'd say famous last words. That's what we're told about healthcare. It's what we're told about a Green New Deal. But when it's a war or a tax cut for billionaires, no questions asked. And, we came up with trillions of dollars to bail out Wall Street within a week against the enormous preference of public opinion. We bailed out Wall Street within a week. We mobilized for wars to the tune of trillions of dollars. It's been 21 trillion, in fact, that we've spent on the endless war machine since 9/11. Was that money well spent? I don't think so. I mean, that was like the opposite of well spent,
No.
So, and besides, to economically, pay our debt puts money into the hands of families that need to spend that money. So you can think of it as one gigantic, economic recovery program for the whole country. So I think there are many arguments to dispute that. And that's what we always hear against social programs of any sort, that we can't afford it. Who's we that can't afford it? It's the predator state, it's the billionaires, it's the economic elites. They can't afford it because it requires them to pay up. We could afford it when it was them that was hoarding those trillions of dollars. This is money that was earned and then was hoarded by those who are still rolling in dough for the most part. So those who are most capable, who benefit the most from the infrastructure of our society built on the backs of African Americans, they need to pony up through a progressive tax base and make this possible.
Yeah. Would that also include pulling owed reparations, not just from the federal government, but from also companies like Aetna and Wells Fargo and a lot of these companies that have also profited from slavery in the past?
I think that's a great point, and whether it's coming from particular companies or simply by raising corporate taxes, which have been really slashed over the last century.
Mhm.
Corporations at the end of the Second World War were contributing 6% of GDP in their tax base. Now they're contributing 1% of GDP.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, corporations have made out like bandits here. And
Yes.
especially with recent inflation, this is greedflation is the major driver here. And when the supply chain, supposedly at the source of the problem, when that got restored, it didn't solve the problem. So yeah, I mean, corporations need to pay up, and that would be very interesting. I don't know a lot about kind of the accountability that lies at the feet of particular corporations, and I'd love to hear that discussed. But for sure, corporations need to pay up.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. So thank you very much for that. I would like to move on to another question regarding workers' rights. I know that you are a staunch supporter of unions, but I just want to ask the question in regards to going beyond unionization to possibly worker cooperatives and worker owned and operated businesses. Is there any type of legislation that you would support that would be an aggressive and assertive push for workers to own the businesses in which they work at?
Absolutely, and this is a key part of putting our economy on a sound footing so that it's not just, the plaything of billionaires and wealthy elites who write the rules right now, through their influence peddling in the political parties that they sponsor and jerk around and dictate to. So absolutely. And um, promoting cooperative, uh, you know, the cooperative economy and worker ownership as a major piece of that is built into our platform. And you will see that, you know, um, an office, for example, of cooperative development would be really helpful, as well as, ensuring that the loans and the financing is there. Because often, you know, workers would like to go, you know, and would like to go cooperative and take ownership. And then there are many impediments to that. And
Mhm.
should businesses be allowed to, shut down? Well, no, they shouldn't. There should always be um, an option for workers to assume control if leadership, of the corporation wants to shut it down. Why not make that open, to worker ownership? So absolutely, it's a very key part of putting our economy on the right footing.
Well, this also makes me, think about because shout out to one of my regular viewers, Roger Meadows. He was also speaking about. I know you're familiar with postal banking, but are you familiar with public banking? Because I know that North Dakota actually has a state public bank. What is your view on public banks, either municipally or stationally? What is your view on public banks, and can they also be a great vehicle forward? And would you support something like that as president?
Oh, absolutely. And, North Dakota has really proven what a benefit this is. When the economy really crashed in 2008, they did
Yeah.
not. Public banking was really, really solid, and it maintained the circulation of dollars in their economy. Small businesses didn't go down. It really should be the preferred model, and it shouldn't be limited to state and local. It should also be national, and certainly the Federal Reserve should be nationalized and run for the benefit of the American people and not for the benefit of the private banks who run it.
Yeah, definitely. So, in one of the things that I also try to, and emphasize to people is either a municipal, whether it be a city or a county or a state public bank, would also be a great boon to the economy because it would create means for the city, the municipality, or the state to fund infrastructure projects without having to raise taxes.
Right.
And then it takes that money and reinvests it into the infrastructure. Like, for instance, what we saw in Baltimore that happened over the last night, they wouldn't have to pull money from the state and from taxpayers. Whereas if Maryland were to have, let's say, a state public bank, they can actually pull the money from the money that's grown from the market out of the public bank instead of it having to be pulled from their emergency resources, or they can replenish their emergency resources from that public bank, from the profits made from the public bank, so that the taxpayers wouldn't have to hurt so much. So I try to emphasize, something like that for many people who live in different states where a public bank may be a better option. I know that Nelson Betancourt, shout out to him, who has been on here as well, and Alfecca Maturity, they're actually focusing on public banks, and he's trying to help establish a public bank here in Orange County or in Florida. So I just wanted to get your view on that as well. So that is very much appreciated too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to underscore what you just said, that the cost of public projects goes way down when you're not having to, repay with these outrageous interest rates that support the profits of the bank. Yeah. So it makes all kinds of things possible without really burdening taxpayers. So it's a no-brainer, and if we had a government that worked based on logic and public interest, this would be the order of the day already. And the fact that it's not is just more evidence of what a very corrupt and wrong-headed system we have, and why it is that we need to throw out, our very corrupt elected officials and replace them as a rule. There are some exceptions in there, but for the most part, they are serving the interests of their big corporate donors, and they should be replaced.
Definitely. And I have one more question before I let you go. This is a question that's peering further off into the future. So as we know that on November 5th is going to be election day, what is the plan post 2024 to harness the power of the people who voted and volunteered for your campaign? I ask this because we at large cannot afford a repeat of 2016 and 2020 under Bernie Sanders, where he actually walked away from his campaign and left us really in the lurch. We were directionless outside of his campaign. And we really honestly just cannot afford another 2 to 4 years of another just election to try to change things. And I know through talking to your campaign manager, Jason Call, he picked up Blood in My Eye by George Jackson, which I highly recommend that a lot of people read. And there's an immediate need for action on the ground. What is your plan post 2024 in order to utilize that action, that fervor that's in a lot of people that are putting their trust into you electorally?
Great. And let me just preface that with just a word about the plan before the election, because the conventional wisdom is that we are just little people and we are just, on the margins, that we're not the power holders, but I think that's BS. And it's more BS than it has ever been before. I think the power is more in our hands than it has ever been to really overthrow this system of empire and oligarchy, whose just, a disaster. This is a disaster in terms of national policy. It's a disaster in terms of its cost here at home. The American people are done being thrown under the bus, and the pump is really primed for a big transition, and people are clamoring for that, especially with these two zombie candidates rammed down our throats. It's like, it's the perfect storm to stand up and demand what the American people are demanding now. And, this is kind of across the political spectrum that people are just disgusted and horrified. The reality of our political system is that there are going to be 4 corporate candidates on the ballot. That is 4 anti-worker, pro-war, anti-climate, pro-genocide candidates. There are going to be 4 of them: Biden, Trump, RFK, and No Labels, this fake AstroTurf party, so-called party. It's not really a party. But there are going to be 4 of them on the ballot across the country. We are on track to be the only pro-worker, anti-war, anti-genocide, climate emergency campaign that will be on the ballot. And right now we are on track and on schedule to be on the ballot across the country. We have 3/4 of the signatures already behind us and done, thanks to the state Green parties, because we are a distributed, decentralized grassroots network. There are a lot of people who go to work on this and who watchdog it. They've done it before. So there's every reason to be confident that we are going to be the one party that is there to contest empire across the country. Because if you're only contesting in a couple states, you may have a very important role to play as a voice, but you're not going to hold their feet to the fire. And you have to hold their feet to the fire. As Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. There you go. So we need to be on the ballot challenging power in every state. We are on track to do that. So there are going to be 4 corporate campaigns splitting the corporate vote. And there will be 1 pro-worker, anti-war, anti-genocide campaign. When the vote is being split 5 ways, it's possible to win the race through the Electoral College and not have it go to Congress. It's possible to win that race with as little as 21% of the vote. Now, that may or may not come to pass, but mathematically, that is possible. So the point here is, don't let the predators and the talking heads and the politicians who have, their own power here to protect and who are basically promoting their own self-interest, reject. Don't even listen. Close your ears and your eyes to the wall-to-wall propaganda about how you have to vote for more of the same or how you have to vote for the lesser evil, because there is no greater sign of evil than genocide. There is no more a trademark of fascism than genocide and censorship, which the Democratic Party is leading the charge. Biden has adopted Trump's immigration demagoguery. He's adopted, both he and Obama have been privatizing Medicare and our healthcare system. They are both wedded to the military budget that consumes half of our dollars. They're both invested in nuclear weapons and promoting them like there is no tomorrow, like there is no doomsday. At the end of a nuclear weapon. These are abusive, in my view, criminal leaders who have been abusing the American people and people around the world, who take money from AIPAC and the weapons industry, and they basically do the bidding of the oligarchy. And enough of that. Don't listen to what they say. Reject it out of hand. Tune in to the likes of James Fauntleroy's podcast and, the wonderful independent media that's out there, Revolutionary Blackout Network, Consortium News, you name it. There's a lot of very good and principled stuff. I tune into the other stuff as well, just to keep tabs on what they're doing. But you have to know that this is BS. The public, in fact, according to polls, over 50% of the public knows and says in polling that mainstream media is purposefully misleading you. And you just need to remember that. That applies to mainstream media. It also applies to mainstream politics. It is BS. It is a system of propaganda. Reject it. Listen to the other, really inspired and informative stuff that's out there. There's really great independent media now, and it's really important to take that to heart. So, if you do that and you stand up and you vote, just consider that the number of people carrying medical debt right now, which is 100 million, plus the number of people carrying student debt. There is some overlap here, but that's 44 million. Plus 87 million people who don't have health care, plus 68%, according to Reuters, that object, that strenuously reject U.S. policy on Israel, that call for an immediate ceasefire and an end to the genocide and a diplomatic solution. That's 68%. So if you start bringing these networks together, we get to critical mass very, very quickly. The biggest voting bloc are people who are not voting. It was 100 million in 2016, slightly less in 2020. But, half of Democrats stayed home in the Michigan primary a couple weeks ago, plus the 14% that were uncommitted, the anti-Biden vote. But the 50% who stayed home were also an anti-Biden vote. So there is, this is the moment to seize. This is the perfect storm. If there ever was a moment to take our future back and to demand the promise of democracy, to demand the simple solutions that actually pay for themselves, that are affordable and doable, and without which we cannot survive. Everything from Medicare for all to a Green New Deal. We can do this, and we can actually not do anything but this. This is absolutely essential. So, this is the choice between converging existential crises or stepping up and fighting the power and demanding that we have an America and a world that works for all of us. So how does this work then after the election? We need that broad grassroots coalition. That's what got Obama elected. And he broke all kinds of barriers. But the first thing he did when he was elected was appoint Larry Summers, the architect of the Wall Street meltdown. He appointed him as treasurer. So it was very clear which way the wind was blowing under Obama. And he sent his ground troops home. So he did not have, the democracy army to fight the battles that we will need to fight. So this is just, putting everybody on notice that we have a lot of work to do. But it is possible. It's entirely possible. It's more possible than it's ever been to actually win the White House. But it's also possible to go on from there. And your role doesn't end on election day. Your role only begins on election day. So this is a very long fight. And that's whether we win the White House or we simply win the day by doing well, by progressing, by improving our organization, our base, our mobilization, our networking. And there are, some really interesting things afoot now that we won't take time to discuss, but there are some efforts going on right now to help bring the left together in a more unified way in this election, which I'm very hopeful. Many of us have been working on this for a long, long time. We used to have a thing called Left Elect back in 2012. And it was an ongoing effort to bring the different small, independent, grassroots, non-corporate parties together of the left to form, to get some critical mass here. And that all got blown up by Bernie Sanders. And there have been some fledgling efforts to get it back together. And, hopefully we need to do that. But one way or the other, we need to be movement building and we need to be power building. They both go hand in hand, and we have to demand political power. We have to do the movement building and have the social movements in the street. That's a critical engine of change and transformation. But that's not enough. We have to also build the vehicles for actually challenging political power. Because if all we do is the social movements, we will be completely sidelined and powerless to hold them accountable, which is what we must do. We must hold them accountable, and we must remove them from power. They have really relinquished all credibility. The Democrats voted in lockstep for the child starvation bill, that $1 trillion budget program, which will also, deliver $3.8 billion to Israel to keep doing what it's doing. But importantly, it cuts off food through UNRWA for a long time, till long after everybody will be dead and gone. We're on a death watch right now for 2 million people. This is absolutely outrageous. So the time has never been as urgent as it is right now to stand up and fight together, and to fight together for the long haul. So I'm hoping we can do that. And go to Jill Stein 2024.com and join the team.
Thank you so much. Look, and just one more thing. I when you said there are 4 corporate people running, I am quite heartened to hear that you mentioned someone like a RFK Jr. From the way the direction he's going is as if he's being puppeted by Shmuley Botiach, and it is looking like it's looking very bad on his face, because there's a lot of people that are seeing the genocide that is happening. And I'm very happy that you said this is a genocide that is happening, because a lot of people are not brave enough to even utter those words. And someone like RFK Jr. really could take a page out of your book from showing chutzpah and being able to look at the Israel lobby and saying, absolutely not, this should not be allowed. So I thank you for calling him out on that as well, because I honestly think that there is a lot of misleading that is being done, and being called an independent while espousing that you are independent. To me, he's a Democrat with an I next to his name.
Yeah, if even. To my mind, this is just unmitigated corruption, to be taking their money, to be fundraising with them, that is the Israel lobby, which is conducting a genocide, and then to pretend that you are a peace candidate, as if the war in the Middle East is not a war in the Middle East. This is a war. We are bombing 4 countries. We are bombing Iranian targets. In addition, Iran is now in a military alliance with Russia. So this could go nuclear. This is like pre-World War I with nuclear weapons thrown into the mix. This could happen. This does happen. World War I wasn't expected to happen, but it was equally complex and, kind of a malevolent mix, which is what's going on right now. But there are nuclear weapons thrown into this mix as well. And, in my view, I think you're more patient or generous than I am. I would not hold my breath that someone who has sold their soul to the extent that RFK has, I'm sad to say, but that became pretty clear early on when he started, doing his appearances with Rabbi Shmuley, and and then doing fundraisers with Jordan Adelson's wife. I mean, are you kidding? How do you get more in the pocket of AIPAC than what he's doing? And it's pathetic. It's pathetic. And we need to move on. We need to move on with a world that works for all of us. Right now, there's no hope of that. So we got to stand up.
Yeah. And next time you come on, I want to ask you about your opinions regarding Congo, Sudan, Haiti. I have so many questions.
Yeah.
And I actually went over, and so my apologies to you, but I really just wanted to, you and I can probably talk all day, and
I'm sure we could.
Like less than an hour. So, yeah.
Well, it was a good start. So, I really enjoyed it, and it's my bad too that I couldn't resist just sharing all kinds of excitement and defiance with you. I feel like this is the time to be very excited, very defiant, and to really be raising our expectations. So, I feel like we're on a team here in a way. I mean, I can't say that you're like non-committed. You're a member of the press and all that. So I respect that. But even beyond like the politics of the moment, I feel like this is a team here. This is a team for social and political transformation and for an end to oligarchy and empire. So we're on the same team here.
Thank you so much. And for all of you who are looking, you guys can go to her website at Jill Jill Stein 2024. I'm sorry, yeah, JillStein2024.com.
That's it.
And again, you said that you will be having the issues page a little bit more fleshed out, more comprehensive in the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks. There's a lot to it, so it keeps taking longer than we think, but it's just about done.
Okay.
Great.
Well, I cannot wait to take a look at it, and then once I have you back on, then we can discuss line by line and get these questions out regarding your policies as well. Thank you so very much for coming on. It was such a pleasure and an honor to have you on.
Likewise, James. Really great talking with you. Take care. Keep up the fight. See you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so that was a wonderful conversation. I put the link to Dr. Stein's website into the chat so that you guys would have that as well. Just a big, huge, enormous, gargantuan thank you to Dr. Jill Stein for joining me on my little channel. It is growing, so of course, hopefully more people get to see this, this interview, especially in regards to my questions regarding things like reparations, because one of the reasons why I wanted to ask as much as I did is because a lot of times, a lot of people in the Black community, we may see somebody like Dr. Jill Stein and we don't realize how much solidarity it is, for justice with us that some presidential candidates like her have. Unfortunately, somebody like a RFK Jr. does not agree with, for instance, he'll say he agrees with reparations, but when it comes to cash reparations, he says he does not agree. And somebody like him saying that, it's like, wait a minute, shouldn't that be up to us whether we receive cash reparations? If you heard from Dr. Stein a little bit earlier, she said it should be up to the people, those of us who were wrong, in order to receive what we think is deemed sufficient as regards to either cash reparations, institutional changes, and things like that. So I just want to give her a big thank you for, so eloquently putting that there as well. And so if you guys would like to, you guys can go to her website as well. And I know that I said that I would be having a Jason call today, but it was deemed a little bit more advantageous to have on Dr. Stein to have on today. I will be having on Jason call soon because he is also not only Dr. Stein's campaign manager, but also running his own congressional campaign out of Washington State. And I think the congressional campaigns are also very important to highlight as well, especially for people who are running independent and third parties. If you would like to vote for people who are independent and third party, also congressionally, municipally as well, then we also will be bringing that to you on this channel in the near future too. So thank you so very much to Dr. Stein for joining. It was a great conversation, and I hope you guys got a lot out of it too. So with that being said, did you like the stream? Go ahead and give the stream a like. That pushes me out into the algorithm. That helps me grow the channel so that I can bring more of this type of content to all of you so that you can be more well-informed audience. Thank you so very much from the top and bottom of my heart for that as well. Now, just a huge shout out to all the patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this. A huge shout out to all of you on Coffee who also contribute to this network, as well as a huge shout out to anybody that sends me anything via PayPal. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this as well. Just to share with you guys that. Thank you, and thank you. And also, yes, my channel is demonetized because I dare speak out against the genocide that is going on in Palestine right now. So if you guys would like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you so very much for that. As well as, in addition to, and furthermore, if you guys would like to become patrons on Patreon, let me share with you all the tiers that we have on the channel as well. You guys can either become JB members, Solidarity, Comrades, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters. Thank you so very much to all of you for becoming members in advance. And I'd also like to give shout out to new patrons to the channel. We have Matthew Russell and Gene Zyback. So thank you so very much for becoming patrons on the channel. It means the most to me. It literally keeps the lights on. Literally. So thank you so very much for that. And so before I get to the chat and talk to you guys, I just want to go over what we will be talking about today. So, of course, we just had on Dr. Jill Stein joining me for the first time, and it was a wonderful conversation. I am so happy that she was able to make it. But we're also going to be talking about next the topic of dollar stores, taking advantage of you. So that's what we're going to be talking about in a moment. While we're at it, going to go to some of the comments in the chat. Let me check Rockfin really quick just to see if there's any comments there. Not as of yet, but I will check out a little bit later in the future. But I just want to get some comments here and say my hellos to all of you as well in the chat. This day turned out a lot better than I thought. So it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Okay, so starting off, we have Jack Hemmings saying, hi, everyone. Hi at Jaybefaunt. So good to see you in here, Jack Hemmings. Mastermind Hours also in here saying hello to Jacqueline. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so very much. Retro Gamer is also in the chat saying hello. Good to see you also, Retro Gamer. Wadi coming in saying, hey, everybody. Good to have you here. Rondo saying peace, 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 fam. Yes, 3 times for emphasis. We love it when you say it 3 times, Rondo. Nice to have you here. We have Robinson 1070 says, I appreciate that Dr. Stein appears to be approaching this election without ego and in the interest of achieving something. Yes, thank you so very much. Ego can sometimes be a killer, so sometimes it's best to take ego and throw it out the window and say, how can I help you? What's the best way that I can help you? And always look out for people who are, when somebody is running for office, I don't care if it's dog catcher, it should be, how can I help you? What is the best way? What do you need? And how can I facilitate that for you? Instead of, this is what I think we should have. And so no matter who does that, if they're not coming at it from that type of angle, then chances are there's a lot of ego involved. So look at it from that lens whenever you're considering anybody who's running for office as well. So Mastermind Hours says, Smokey Bear says, only you can prevent repugnocratic duopolies. That's funny. Jack Hemmings says, my RBN mug arrived today. I was impressed. I was expected to wait ages because of how far away I am. It only took days. Oh, cool. I am so glad you were able to get that. Also, with people who are subscribed to my Patreon, I think you guys also get mugs as well. So if you guys are patrons on Patreon, you guys also get merch as well. And you guys get it, I think, 3 months after you become patrons as well. So if you have been patrons within less than 3 months, then, you know, in a little bit, then you'll also get your merch as well. Ed Royce says, Jill Stein, the only one that makes me even consider electoral politics. Thank you so very much. Colin, oh my goodness, I didn't see this until now. My apologies, but Colin says, please speak to how you would address the ongoing pandemic outside of a universal healthcare policy, such as mitigation in public and the workplace. that is based on current science. I wish I had saw this. My apologies. I was very focused on asking the questions that I had for Dr. Stein. But this is actually a really good question in regards to the mitigation, as well as another thing is really curbing the profit seeking from big pharma as well, because I think that was another big variable that a lot of people aren't really talking about, is that the profit seeking from big pharma. I honestly do not think that our health should be in the hands of profit seekers. Those big pharmas, medical device manufacturers, the people who who are tasked with building, the things that are used in our health. For instance, the MRI machines and the ventilators and things like that. I think that if it's focused on profit seeking, then there are corners that are to be cut, which can also mean that we fare more badly within this space. Remember, there are tactics such as, and I want to get the word right, planned obsolescence. This still is affecting us within the medical community because, for instance, if you still have planned obsolescence, well, then those ventilators aren't going to last as long as they should, right? So therefore, because they want to sell, and it could be Philips, it could be different medical device manufacturers as well that may use planned obsolescence, so that they may not last quite as long as they should because they want to keep that profit margin as high as they possibly can. I don't think that profit should be associated with our medical care. With that being said, yes, I would like to look into that as well. So a full nationalization of our healthcare industry, I think, is due, because we absolutely deserve it as the citizens of this nation. And I also think that the full nationalization of our defense industry as well. I wanted to ask Dr. Stein about that, but due to the sake of time, unfortunately, I wanted to be respectful of her time. I promised her 45 minutes. I wanted to make sure that I was within that range. But I also think that we should not have a Raytheon. We should not have a Northrop Grumman. Boeing, if Boeing wants to be, I don't think Boeing should be in the industry in regards to defense. If they want to do commercially, yes. And I also think Boeing should be owned by the workers for commercial planes. But as far as defense, I think it should all be built by our government. Because one of the biggest issues I think that a lot of people don't think about is, if you take the profit seeking out of military, therefore, there is no reason for us to have the wars that we do, because it's ultimately to make profit. Well, if it's not profitable anymore, if you take the ability to make profit, I would honestly ban private corporations from being in defense. Because if you do that, then therefore the need to push for war anymore, it wouldn't happen. Because then why would there be a need to have a war in Ukraine, a proxy war in Ukraine? Why would there be a need for us to push for military conflicts with China over Taiwan? Why in the world would there even be a need to give money to the Zionist state of Israel? What's going on right now in a lot of these countries is really ultimately because you have companies like Lockheed Martin that want their billions of dollars, right? A full nationalization of our oil industry as well. so that we're not going back into the Middle East. Do you know what that would do if we were to actually nationalize? Like, for instance, what if we nationalize Exxon? Think about it. There would be no need for us to continue to fund Israel. Why? Because think about this, and I showed this before, but think about what's going on right now in Israel. It is not without saying that there are resources there that would be benefit the corporations within the West, like the United States, because you have the LNG, the liquefied natural gas, that is underneath Gaza and the West Bank. Then you have the oil that's off the coast in the Mediterranean, that's off the coast of Gaza and the West Bank. And then on top of it, they want to build that Ben Gurion Canal that competes with the Suez Canal in Palestine. It's all because of resources. And so if you take those resources and nationalize it, it's not really going to be a profitable incentive in order to cause these destabilizations that happen in these regions. Remember coming to America when Simi decided to spend a whole bunch of money and he basically almost ruined Hakeem's chances with Lisa, and he spruced up the inside of their apartment. Remember what Hakeem said when Simi was inside the hot tub? He grabbed the money from him and he said, if you have no money, then you can't cause any more trouble. Take the means to make money from these industries out of their hands, and trouble is extinguished. Anyhow, I didn't mean to spend that much time on your comment, Colin, but you got me going, so thank you very much. Cobra Commander says, JB looking good, and Jill Stein is here too. Last politician I ever voted for. Thank you so very much. Appreciate that. MJR, hello, says Jill Stein 2024. John H coming in saying, hello, comrades. Good to see you in here as well. Desert Mantis coming in saying, hello. Good to see you, Desert Mantis. Let me see who else we have here. We have Ed Royce says, how do we prevent these MFers from raising the price of everything if we get $15 an hour minimum? I say we have to go way above and beyond that. I would say we would have to go somewhere north of $35 an hour and then have it adjusted automatically according to cost of living. Meaning that nobody, I would like to go the Chinese model, meaning that your housing expense being either rent or mortgage should not be more than 10% of your income. I said what I said. Nobody should have to struggle at all when it comes to housing. Housing is a human right. Therefore, we should have housing for people who are unhoused. And then for people who have rent or mortgages, number one, I want to get rid of landlords, period. But in the interim, you should not be paying more than 10%. I think that should be the bulk of what you pay, 10%. But yes. Good to see a Sherry Specter saying hello to the people. We have Norman Kina coming in. I have no idea what that means, but thank you so much. Good to see you as well. Sakudo coming in saying, thank you for this, JB. All the real ones know your show is the raw-ish. Thank you so very much. I'm trying not to cuss. I'm trying to keep this into a family show. Dear God. Okay. Roger Meadows says, don't forget Wall Street was built with the profits from slavery. This is absolutely true. Yes. Wall Street was created because of slavery. Thank you so very much. Creative Experiments says, workers already run the business. We just don't get paid for it. Absolutely, yes. This is why workers need to own the means of production, because you already run it. It's just not fair that the money's not given to you because y'all the ones that run it. And without you guys, the business owners would have to run it all themselves, and they can't. So there. Ghost Nest coming in saying, what are the benefits of keeping the Fed and maintaining it for public banks over abolishing it? So that's a good question. I wish I had saw that as well. But really it is about the creation of money. That's a good question. Like, what is the benefit of keeping the Federal Reserve? Because really, I mean, the production of money is done by the Treasury. So, yes. But we can save that for another time. But thank you so very much for that. We have John Kemper coming in, aka Blue Marble, Adam Bashir. Good to see you as well. John Stasevich says, so as long as capitalism survives, humanity won't. Justice depends on moving beyond capitalism, and this must be job one. Capitalism is the root cause of every global problem. I agree. All right. So let me continue on to, and thank you so very much. Eric T. Red says the Fed is just a tool. We need to control the wielder of the tool. Very good point. Very good point. I agree. Yes. Yes. And yes, John Davis says higher wages, yes, but these companies are outsourcing employees for cheap labor. This is why we need to have solidarity with the other workers around the world so that they don't get to outsource it. This is also why they allow for the undocumented immigrants to come in so that they can exploit them. And what I mean by this is it's a cycle, right? They keep their countries destabilized so that it pushes more undocumented immigrants into the country so that they can become more exploited. If you want to stop the leak, turn off the faucet. The faucet being the destabilization that happens in places like El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and all these other countries. Stop doing what you're doing in their countries. Stop creating victims and pushing them to have to leave their homes. And then when they come here, they get discriminated against, not just by being exploited by our corporations here, but also being hated by our own citizens when they come here just for being in a crisis and having to come here as refugees. If you really want solidarity with workers, we will push for the ending of the destabilization in their countries so that they can actually have it better in their own home countries. I want them to come here, not as refugees, but as visitors. I want them, if they want to come here and move here, then they can take their time. And they don't have to rush because they're fleeing the crisis that our nation has perpetuated. Because there are two sets of victims. There are the undocumented immigrants, they are victims, and we are victims. And we are being pitted against one another when in reality we should have solidarity with one another. And that's how it is. That's ultimately what needs to happen. Because it's not their fault and it is not our fault, but it is incumbent upon us to make sure that it gets stopped so that both of us are no longer victims of the corporatocracy that has held our nation by the throat ever since its inception. And yes, I say ever since its inception because look at those of us who are American descendants of slaves. And look at the indigenous people of this land that have been held by the throat, that have been genocided over 500 years due to colonialism and imperialism by the West. So, yeah. So, what are we talking about? Our next subject is going to be here. Taking advantage of you dollar stores. Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, dollar bills, y'all. Dollar stores have been a main staple in hoods and hollers across this country. Now, I say they're taking advantage because when economic crises happen, especially to those of us who are poor and working poor, who comes in and slides on in and says, hey, we got some cheaper stuff for you. Come on in and see our wares. It's the dollar stores. And they're making billions. Then on top of that, wait, when y'all go into a Family Dollar, don't you hate it when you're waiting in line and the line is like a mile long, all because they only have one register open and one person working, and then you have one person stocking in the back, and you ain't got nobody else working in the store. And it's peak time. It's like 5, 6 o'clock after everybody gets off of work and they have to go to the store. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why they're always understaffed. There's a reason why they don't have as many people working in order for you to be able to get in and get out. For a store so small, you spend a lot of time in line. Let's get into it. So let me share my screen in regards to what's going on. Let me get to it. Because I didn't see this talked about too much in regards to these dollar stores, but there's a lot going on right now. Let me see. As far as dollar stores are concerned. Okay. So right now, there is going to be closures. That's happening. And Family Dollar and Dollar Tree are going to be laying off workers as well. We're going to get into that too. But here we go. So this came out a couple weeks back. Well, not even a whole week back, but it says Family Dollar and Dollar Tree will close 1,000 stores. This is big. I don't think you guys realize how big this is. So it says Family Dollar, the struggling discount chain that caters to low-income customers, predominantly in cities, said Wednesday it will close nearly 1,000 stores. Years of mismanagement and poor conditions in stores have hurt Family Dollar's brand. Family Dollar, which is owned by Dollar Tree, was recently fined more than $40 million for rat infestation at a warehouse that forced hundreds of stores to temporarily close. Decades high inflation that has hit shoppers hard, and wow, really? No, thank you. Sorry. Decades high inflation that hits shoppers hard and a general customer pullback has impacted Family Dollar customers and the change profits, exacerbating its battle with discount competitors such as Dollar General, Walmart, and others. And it says, in addition, the reduction in benefits for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, has left struggling families with as much as $250 less per month. Discount stores and consumer good companies say that they have felt the impact of that loss. First of all, let's get this out here right now. I am also on food stamps. Yes, quiet as it's kept. Yes, yours truly is also on food stamps. Guess what? When they drop our food stamps, then guess where we go less? We go less to the stores. And of course, Family Dollar is going to feel that because they cater to low income. So if you drop our food stamps, the profits also drop on a commensurate rate because we're not going to the stores as much. We can't afford to. On top of the inflation that has been going on within this country over the last 3 to 4 years, everything has been going up. So therefore, it has been harming us the most. Look, I know a lot of people are saying, oh my God, we're hurting too. We're middle class. Or, oh, we're working class and we're making $60,000, $70,000 a year. Like, look, yes, you guys are feeling a pinch. You guys are feeling some pain. But those of us who have combined incomes of less than $30,000 a year, we are hurting the most. Absolutely. Because guess what? We have to pay hidden taxes that some of y'all just don't have to pay. It's getting real out here. The rise of homelessness is skyrocketing. The rise of, we just talked with Dr. Joe Stein, the rise of evictions are skyrocketing as of right now. Now you have over 1,000 Family Dollars that are going to close. How many workers is that going to affect? Because you and I both know that workers at Family Dollar, they're not raking in the dough when it comes to working there. So that's another burden that's going to be on the working poor. You notice I don't say working class, I say the working poor. The reason why I say that is because we get left out every single time. Day in and day out, we get left out. Everybody talks about, oh, the middle class. Or Bernie Sanders will say, the working class, right? But those of us who are within a hair's breadth away from being out on the street, do we get talked about as much? No. This is why I bring us up more than usual. Because we need that representation. I can't talk today. Representation as well. So, quote from CEO Rick Drelling says, persistent inflation and reduced government benefits continue to pressure the low-income consumers that comprise a sizable portion of Family Dollar's customer base. So he says that's some of the reason, right? But one thing that he's not telling you is that his colleagues that are in these big box stores and the ones who own the means of production are really artificially inflating the prices so that they can make more in profits. Can we talk about what Tyson Chicken, Sanderson Farms, and Purdue Farms, how they automatically and artificially inflated the price of chicken and eggs so that they can make more money, and how Washington State is putting out a lawsuit against them for artificially inflating the price of chicken and chicken products? Can we talk about it? Because it's because of them and many other corporations that are artificially inflating the prices, which means now who else has to inflate their prices? Well, it's the Targets, it's the Walmarts, it's the Amazons. All these other different companies have to do it too. Who's also doing it? Well, wouldn't it be the fuel, the fuel companies, right? The Exxons and the BPs and the Coke industries. Aren't they increasing the prices of oil? What, is there somehow oil coming out a little bit less than it typically does? Somehow? Is it just being hard to pump out more? So now, yes, the oil prices are going up, which also affects down the line, and it gets passed on to us, the consumer. says Family Dollar will close 600 locations this year and 370 stores over the next several years as the store leases expire. Family Dollar has around 8,000 U.S. stores. Dollar Tree also said it will close 30 stores as leases expire. So it says the closures will improve the company's profitability. It's always about profit. Says they are likely to leave a void for Americans with already limited shopping choices. Family Dollar stores are often in areas with few supermarkets, big box stores, and other retail options. Shares of Dollar Tree sank more than 13% to their lowest level this year in early trading on Wednesday. Now, it talks about understaffed and hazardous stores. We all know, like, this is no surprise that Family Dollar typically is understaffed. You can go in anytime and see that, look, they do not have enough people to man the registers. They do not have enough people to stock the shelves like they should, because they run on skeleton crews already. And that's to keep the profits high, because they don't care about workers. They care about the shareholders. The shareholders are number one in their view. So with that being said, then that's why it is incumbent upon us to look at it from a systemic level, because companies like Family Dollar, they're never going to care unless it is actually a worker-owned company. And by worker-owned, I'm not talking about publicly traded. I'm talking about worker-owned and operated, democratically owned and operated by the workers collectively. Because outside of that, they're not actually going to change their ways, because ultimately it's always about the profit incentive. So, and this actually continues to go into the article talking about how they had a lot that has happened in regards to rat infestations in some of their warehouses. So it is just, horrible what's going on in regards to Family Dollar. Now, there is a boom happening with Dollar General, and we're going to get into Dollar General in a bit. That says Dollar General has opened up about 1,000 stores a year, making it the fastest growing retailer in the United States. The company has around 18,000 stores. The companies are battling for many of the same low-income shoppers. Despite the name, these stores sell mostly food and everyday items between $1 and $10. So it's now a battle of the lower income shopping experience that's happening in regards to these dollar stores. These dollar stores essentially also do not care about us at all. I want to share as well. Let me see this as well. Yes. Because this was come out of More Perfect Union. And they're talking about Dollar General. Let me go here. There we go. And we're going to go over this as well, just to share what's going on with Dollar General. And this is from More Perfect Union. It's entitled What Dollar General Doesn't Want You to Know. So we're going to get into this right now.
Really see Dollar General as like a criminal organization.
Who are stealing from my community. And I think they're very aware of it.
It's a classic bait and switch.
Somebody at the top is making a lot of money.
Go for a drive in any American county, and you'll likely soon pass by the yellow and black lettering of a Dollar General. Drive a little further, and another will appear. Then another, then another.
Here's the other Dollar General store It's 7 miles from the last Dollar General store we were at.
Hold up. Have you guys ever heard of the mattress firm conspiracy theory? Okay. Hang on to your hats. There's this conspiracy theory that whenever you go into a mattress firm, there's no customers, right? But then you'll have mattress firms almost completely across the street from another mattress firm. And it's like, what? Why are there so many mattress firms, right? Some people are saying, allegedly, that mattress firm may be involved in some like money laundering, allegedly. That's why they have so many mattress firms around. Why is there so many Dollar Generals within a short distance? I mean, wouldn't it benefit to not have them as close? I mean, I'm just saying, baby. Like, you know, let's talk about it. Just a thought. Let's continue.
With nearly 20,000 Dollar General stores in 48 states, the Tennessee-based discount chain has sunk its teeth into lower-income, rural, and suburban areas everywhere.
20,000 stores. 20,000? Look, I'm going to tell you right now. You want to know how well the United States is doing? Look at how many dollar stores there are in comparison. Because we who are low income, we're going to the Family Dollars, we're going to the Dollar Trees, we're going to the Dollar Generals. That's where we're going. Now, if we need a bigger selection, we may end up going to the Walmart, right? Or for some of us, it may be the Winn-Dixie, right? Some of y'all, it could be Acme, it could be Pathmart, maybe ShopRite, right? For those of you, especially in the Northeast. For those of us here in the Southeast, you know, once in a while we can go to Publix, even though Publix is high as hell. Where shopping is a pleasure. Yeah, right. But when it comes to actual shopping, like, I can't tell you how many times my mother goes to Family Dollar. And look, Family Dollar is a block over. I can walk to the Family Dollar. Right? Dollar Tree, 2 blocks away. Dollar General, about 4 blocks away. So I have them all within, if you were to drive, the furthest, 5 minutes. Dollar General's the furthest, then the closer one is Dollar Tree, and then the closest one is the Family Dollar. So that's what we have within our area, my area, right? And so this means that if you have this many dollar stores, just 20,000 alone in Dollar General, then you have, 8,000 stores, Family Dollar, so that's 28,000. Then add Dollar Tree into it. You're probably close to around 30,000 stores at least. We're not doing good because we can't afford to go to any of the other bigger stores. That tells you everything you need to know about what's going on in this country. And yet, I'm sorry, but somebody like Ryan Grimm and Crystal Ball talking about, well, the NLRB and look what good is Biden's doing with the economy. Ma'am, sir, it's not good. It's not. Look, the amount of dollar stores has exploded at a commensurate rate with how we're doing financially because we have no other choice but to go there. If dollar stores are doing good, if they're booming and opening more stores, that's bad for us because that's the only option that we have. Let's continue.
It's easy to look at the dollar stores and think they are a sign of economic distress or a symptom of economic distress. But what we found is that they're in fact a cause of it.
Underneath Dollar General's so-called low everyday prices in convenient locations lies a sinister business model and a massive scandal that hardly anybody knows about.
The fact that we have to sue a company to get them to tell the truth is absurd in my mind to begin with.
My name is Lori Hartline. I am a Dollar General shopper out of convenience in my neighborhood. What you see here is when you travel, you'll go from looking for a grocery store, and before you get one, you have $3 Dollar General options. That's all you have.
In May of 2022, Lori Hartline started noticing some seemingly harmless discrepancies while shopping at her local Dollar General.
When they opened up in, I think it was 2021, their price of my kitty litter was $8.95. Great. I purchased it all the time. I didn't pay attention. I go up there, I check out, I leave. Well, one day, wait a minute, $10? I noticed it. I asked him about it. Oh no, they've raised the price. Well, that doesn't say it on the shelf. Well, they just have to change it. It's in the computer. It's not on the shelf. Next week, go in and buy cat litter. Same thing. That is not what the price says on the shelf. What am I doing wrong here? I was watching the news one morning and heard about Dollar General in the state of Ohio was being sued for deceptive pricing. That is what happens to me. I knew I wasn't crazy. I know it's just not me.
After months of repeatedly being overcharged by Dollar General, Lori wrote a letter to the Oklahoma Attorney General.
And within 2 days, I got a response that they forwarded the letter. Great. They responded back, Dollar General did, and they apologized and they said, we'll have a gift card for you. I said, okay, well, let me just ask, how much is it for? $10. Tell her to keep it. I don't want it. It was insulting.
Lori's story was brought to attorney Mark Dan, where it became the basis for one of 3 class action lawsuits in Oklahoma, New York, and New Jersey.
So first of all, they told her to take $10 and shut up. See how they feel about you? I'll tell you this. Imagine if Dollar General was worker owned. If it was worker owned, it would have been a way different experience, in my opinion. This is why I think that workers should own the means of production. Because if we work and live and shop in the same area as these neighbors, we're not going to cheat them like that. Wow, these companies, man, these corporations are evil.
I don't think there's any question that Dollar General is doing this intentionally and systematically.
June 22nd, I was overcharged 4 items out of 11. $7.95 was advertised $6.50.
If you tell me one thing and then charge me something else, in almost every jurisdiction in America, that would be theft by deception. Corporations, as we now know from the U.S. Supreme Court, are people, and people need to follow the law.
Dollar General's deceptive business practices run deeper than most realize, according to Stacy Mitchell. a researcher at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance.
I think what they're looking for is places that have been that lack, economic and political power, places that they can push around. They're often building in such numbers that it becomes impossible for a new grocery store or other locally owned businesses to develop in a neighborhood that really needs them. They kind of lock in poverty as they grow because poverty is the thing that really fuels these companies' bottom lines.
So
let's go back just for a second, because I want to just go over this one more time.
jurisdiction in America, that would be theft by deception. Corporations, as we now know from the US Supreme Court, are people, and people need to follow the law.
Dollar General's deceptive business practices run deeper than most realize, according to Stacy Mitchell, a researcher at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance.
I think what they're looking for is places that have been that lack, economic and political power, places that they can push around. They're often building in such numbers that it becomes impossible for a new grocery store or other locally owned businesses to develop in a neighborhood that really needs them. They kind of lock in poverty as they grow because poverty is the thing that really fuels these companies' bottom lines.
They thrive off of poverty. Poverty is their business model. Look, I'm gonna get back to that in a second, but let me share this with you guys, because this is how much these dollar stores actually care about you. I appreciate this from World Socialist website, but they bring this out. It says, perhaps not coincidentally, the news of the mass store closings come after Family Dollar was ordered February 27th to pay $41.6 million fine by the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Arkansas for storing food, cosmetics, medicine, and other products in a rat-infested warehouse, leading to scores of temporary closures for stores around the country. Look, it's right there. So you tell me, number one, they don't care about those of us who are working poor, because they will let rats who will spread feces and urine and diseases all around the products that we use every day, right? Imagine trying to get a pack of diapers and rats have been all over it, and now you may be spreading something to your kid. This is what's going on in this country in regards to these stores. And then on top of it, they thrive off of you being impoverished, so that forces you to go to their stores. Why do you think I said in the thumbnail that they are taking advantage of you? That's ultimately what these stores are all about. So let's go back to the video. I just want to bring that out because that's really important, because a lot of times people think, oh, well, these are just a better option for us. These are, they're coming in and trying to help people by giving us a low-cost option for our goods and services. Wrong. They don't care. Let's continue. All right.
So we have the poorest people in the country going to a store that's deceiving them about the price that they're charging for goods, in a situation where they have very few other realistic choices. I think it's about as exploitive a business plan as I've ever seen. Almost every county in America and every state has a system for making sure that people who run cash registers do so honestly.
Price verification is when we see that a product is listed for $2.99, take it up to the register, scan it, make sure it's ringing up as $2.99. We do a random sample of products that we pull. We're used to seeing one or two failures, getting it corrected, and feeling confident. Unfortunately, in Dollar General's case, it was large and continuous. The scale or the concern was over 80% of the stores that we checked were failing, and were failing repetitively, and really no acknowledgement or desire to correct that failure.
Despite being cited repeatedly, Dollar General neglected to correct the problem, prompting.
So they're overcharging, allegedly. Overcharging is part of their business model. So, and I'm going to make sure, because I'm going to tell my mama this too. Whenever you go to Dollar General, you'd have to check every single time the prices that's on the counter, that's on the shelf, and make sure either write it down for each one that you get, or take a picture with your phone for each price of every single item that you get. Then once you go to the cash register, if it is higher than what is on that sticker, and if they don't change it, you walk your happy ass out that store. Do not give them your business if they're going to keep that way, because that's the only way that in the interim we can actually change that, is by boycotting them and saying, no, unless you guys are actually honest about your prices, we're not going to shop with you. Because that's part of their business model, allegedly. To overcharge you. And here's the thing. They know they're overcharging the poorest of Americans. That means that they knowingly are causing you and I more suffering than we already have. It's crazy. Okay, let's continue.
The Ohio Attorney General to file litigation against the store.
One unique component in our conversation was the recognition of how Dollar General staffs, or short staff were receiving no guidance, and were just kind of keeping the place open as best they could, not really necessarily aware of the price verification challenge, their duty and responsibility under Ohio law, and then opportunities to correct it.
If you have designed a business where you are deliberately understaffing your stores, you're deliberately cutting costs, you're going to end up having these kinds of, widespread mistakes in pricing. I mean, that's just the reality of, you are not actually providing enough labor to comply with the law and make sure that people are getting charged what the price actually is.
That is on purpose. They want to do that because they want to run skeleton crews so that they do not have to keep as many workers, so that the profit margins are higher. See, this is how capitalism works, right? So you have one or a very small group of people who own the means of production, right? Well, if they want to keep profits high, there's a few things that they have to do. One of the things that they have to do is they will pass that on to the consumer by making sure that prices are higher, right? That's one of the ways how they do it. Another way they do it is by making sure that there's less workers so that the profits are higher, so that they don't have to pay as much in operation costs. Well, this can also harm companies because they're not being in compliance with keeping the prices that are supposed to be there. This also is in making sure that because these places are understaffed, the quality of customer service goes down, because guess what? If customers aren't being served properly, because they have such a tight grip on the market, for them, it's like, oh, well, where are you going to go? Another Dollar General, another Family Dollar, another Dollar Tree? Okay, fine, whatever. We're still going to be here. So then also safety regulations, right? Those things go by the wayside. Look, those rat infestations that happen in Arkansas in their warehouses, how much you want to bet it's because they didn't want to spend the money for pest control, because that's money that they wanted to pocket themselves and profit. So who gets sick? Your kid gets sick. Your mama gets sick. Your daddy gets sick. Everybody getting sick. Why? Because they want to keep more money in their pockets. Also, on top of that, you go to work for these people, and then guess what? You're stressed out because you have to work all these hours and you have to get all this done while not just stocking in the back, but making sure that you keep an eye on the register so that you can go up and ring people up. So now you're being split in two just in order to be able to work the store. And it's not just a stress on you as a worker, but also your management. Because guess what? I used to work with somebody who managed a Family Dollar. And she literally had to run the entire store by herself. So even when you're in management, you're getting screwed over. This is why workers should own the means of production. It should not be left to the devices of shareholders and these executives, because these corporatists will run things into the ground. They will run the community into the ground. They'll run workers into the ground. It's wild.
They have decided that they can make more profit by violating all of these laws, by understaffing, by cutting corners. And right now, the fines that are associated with doing that are simply a cost of doing business. They are too low to make a difference and to stop this organization from behaving this way.
That's another point that I wanted to bring out, is that even if they have a fine, they'll just pay the fine. It's easier just to do that and then keep doing the transgression that they're committing against you. They factored that cost in. They factored the cost of being fined already in there. So of course they're going to keep violating it. This is why they need to feel pain. And what do? This is why the system needs to change.
Dollar General has been fined over $20 million by states and the federal government since 2017. But those fines, which pale in comparison to the amount Dollar General has siphoned from communities, have done little to change the company's behavior.
There are 19,000 stores. There are literally millions of transactions a day, millions of items sold a day in Dollar General stores. And even if at 10% of the time they're stealing 10 cents on 10% of the items that are sold, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars going into the pockets of Dollar General shareholders and out of the pockets of the poorest people in America.
If you're a systematic violator of laws as a company, what's the deeper way that we can go after you? At some point, you've got to be shut down if you can't reform your behavior, because clearly this one-off approach that we're using is not working.
And I think that it's time for Dollar General to pay the price civilly, to pay the customers for what they've stolen from them, to change their business practices for how they go forward in the future. And I don't think it's far-fetched at all to think that the corporate executives who hatched this scheme ought to be prosecuted.
They can build this little metal building in a week, maybe 2 max. And everybody's getting ripped off every day. It's only a quarter here. It's a dime here. It's 35 cents here. Who has the time to go and write a letter and complain over a quarter? Well, I do.
So that's Dollar General. I'm going to share something with you guys too. Because I wanted to share this as well. When talking about companies like Dollar General, I think it's important to talk about and follow the money, because once you follow the money, that gives you an indication of who owns what and how intertwined everything is, right? So let's go to Dollar General. Let me share this. This is Dollar General stock ownership, right? So Dollar General Corporation, right? The holders, top institutional holders: Vanguard, BlackRock, Capital International Investors, T. Rowe Price, Capital World Investors, State Street, Geo Capital Management LLC, Morgan Stanley, Longview, Norges. All these guys, are the notorious shareholders that own a piece of everything. Vanguard owns 11.42%. BlackRock owns 8.83%. State Street owns 4.39% of Dollar General. So this is what it is. It's always at the behest of the shareholders, like Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock, T. Rowe Price, all these ones. They're always the culprits. It's like every single time we're going through some BS regarding the corporations in our country, it's always those few who are always involved. Now, let's take a look at Dollar Tree, which owns Family Dollar. This is Dollar Tree. Top institutional holders. Well, what do you know? Take a look again. Vanguard, Capital World Investors, BlackRock, Mantle Ridge, Nomura Holdings, Capital International Investors, State Street, EdgePoint, FMR, T. Rowe Price. Same companies, same corporations, the same ones. So no matter where you go, you're going to be giving your money to the same Wall Street institutions that essentially own our dollar stores that are making money off of poverty. And they know this, and they don't care. This is why I can't stand going to them. I can't stand going to them now. But what other choice did you have? And then on top of it, a lot of these stores are in rural areas where you don't have a grocery store that close. So you may have to go to that Dollar Tree that has the frozen food section because you really don't have access to an actual grocery store where they have the fruits and veggies that are out for you. They don't have the fresh meats, that are out there for you. So you may have to go to one of these stores, which means that it is a halfway point between a convenience store and a grocery store, and yet you're still in a food desert. So this is also against people, those of us who are working poor in rural areas. This is why it is important to follow the money, because ultimately, they just don't care about you. Their goal is to exploit and to take advantage of you day in and day out. This is why I always call for workers to own. This is why I push for things like worker co-ops. This is why I push for changing of the system. Because they want you to stay in poverty. You don't think BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard, you don't think they don't want you to stay in poverty? Oh, they do. Because they make money off of your desperation. This system needs to be taken out of their hands. It needs to be done now. So if you guys have not, go ahead and subscribe to jaybefaunt.substack.com. That alerts you to whenever I go live, upload clips, or write articles. And please go ahead and give the stream a like. All right, so let's go to the chat. All right. Got anything in the rock? Yes, we got some Rockfin chats that we're going to go to right now. And then we will go to the chats and the rest of the tube. All right, let's share the screen. Okay. So thank you very much for the chat. Hemcar says, is Jill Stein going to debate Diane Sayre over nuclear power? That's a good question. I think that would be a worthy debate to have. I heard some things regarding nuclear power as instead of using uranium, it's moving on to something that they think is much more safer. It's called thorium. I mean, that's a debate that's worth having. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's a worthy debate to have in regards to taking our energy and making sure that we have energy independence, especially in the realm of renewables. And then if there's a safer form of nuclear energy that we can have, I think that's a discussion that's worth having. I don't have a particular opinion either way because I would like to see the research into thorium. I have a comrade who is also anti-capitalist that wants to look into thorium. So I think that's a worthy conversation to have. But thank you very much for that, Hempcar. Thank you for the tip, Roger. Roger says, regarding food forced obsolescence, how much you want to bet that there's a material out there that they're not telling us about that can be used to pave our roads and can probably last for 100 plus years, or that our construction industry refuses to use on our roads. So instead, they use cheap asphalt and concrete to ensure jobs for tomorrow. Now, pharmaceutical, if it were nationalized, they finally release Vax for cancer. Oh, you talking about? Look, if they can have a lung cancer vaccine in Cuba, we can have a lung vaccine here in the United States. What's the difference? Cuba, their national healthcare system owns the pharmaceutical industry in Cuba. So therefore, they're able to have cures, not treatments. Not just treatments, they can also do cures. So, yes, Roger. Next one, Roger, thank you very much for the tip. He says, Jay, I'm in the past about 5 minutes. That question from the chat just came up to me where someone asked about doing something with the Fed. Here's the thing. We have a bill in Chicago, Congressman Danny K. Davis, for a national infrastructure bank. We implement that and get rid of the privatized Federal Reserve Bank, and then we're good. We've already had the model for it with the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. Oh, thank you so very much for that, Roger. I appreciate it. Roger coming in with the facts. All right. All right, let's go to the rest of the chat as well. Sheila. Sorry, that just popped up. I'm not going to read it, but Sheila, you made me laugh. All right. So, yes. Eric says, follow the money. Yes, absolutely. All right. Layers of Snark says, BlackRock, of course. Yes, they are always there. They are the usual suspects, as Rondo says. Teresa says, I had no idea BlackRock was involved in Dollar General. Yes, baby. Yes, they are. Man, they are pulling the strings, baby. Sheila says maybe they will all fly on Boeings. One can only hope. Yeah. Jack Hemmings says those fines that Dollar General get are probably like money they can find down in the back of furniture. Yep. Right next to that nasty ass gummy bear and that stale ass Dorito chip that fell into the cracks between the cushions of the sofa. Good golly, Miss Molly. I tell you. All right. The Quantum Alchemist says, heck, we live in times where countries like Egypt, not well suited for agriculture, can be bread baskets, and yet we, with all these handicaps, fail. Absolutely. We can actually do a lot better, but it's a choice by corporations to not do it. Creative Experiment says there are no safe nuclear energy right now. Need to dismantle old reactors first. I think that's a worthy conversation. Alexis Anderson says, I hear fusion power is where we need to go. Yeah. Let me see. Sharon says, Cuba's not-for-profit medicine. Absolutely. Sean Miller says, Roger, that it's called volcanic ash. That's where you used to make concrete last 100 years. Interesting. And yes, Grant says they also got some of the best doctors in the world. Yes, in regards to Cuba. Yes, they do. I would love to see Dr. Joe Stein go to Cuba and interview some of the doctors. I think that would be a really cool conversation, don't you? I think so. I would love to see that. Because Dr. Joe Stein is a medical doctor, so I think that'd be cool. Sharon says, I just read that Libya and Gaddafi were going to go to their own money and base it on gold, tossing over the US dollar. Yes, there was going to be the gold dinar, and it was going to be based on gold. And Libya also has its own oil too, so they were going, and then also they were going to try to form Africa into being the African Union, kind of sort of like the European Union. It was going to be the African Union, where they have an African currency based in Africa. So it would be essentially they're trying to make a USA, the United States of Africa. And the West essentially shit their pants. That's why Gaddafi's gone. Because he was like, we're going to unite Africa. The West said, no, you don't. Pow, pow, pow. Next thing you know, well, they didn't go pow, pow, pow. They made it so that some citizens essentially assassinated Gaddafi. But yes. Zoe says, what BlackRock not involved in? They're the most whorish corporate entity out there. Yes, they're involved in everything. This is why the system needs to be changed at a fundamental level, because they have their hands in everything. William Black says, who are these shareholders? We need to know. It's publicly traded information. Just like I can look it up on Google. Yeah. You can look up these information. Like you can figure out like people like Larry Fink, right? You can look at these up and you can find this out, and it's quite easy. And I encourage everybody, every single company, whether it's Nestle, whether it's PepsiCo, whether it's Walmart, I don't care what it is. If it is publicly traded, you can find out who the shareholders are. So go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so I got people calling me. I forgot my phone fell. All right, so Roger says, good news in the rock fan in our fight against private equity and shareholder-owned corporate Apple. Oh, I'll take a look at that in a second. Okay. Thank you for that, Roger. Yeah, you heard the ringtone. Oh gosh. Now I'm a little bit embarrassed. No, you guys were supposed to hear the ringtone. No. Okay. All right. So let me go to the chat really quick. I went overtime, over than what I needed to, because I gotta get back to packing and cleaning. Dear God. Oh, so what is this? Roger, what you showing me, Roger? And then this is okay. Okay. Hang on. All right. Let me stop sharing for a second. Let me share the first link that you shared with me, Roger, because I want to make sure I share this as well. Let me get to it. This is interesting. So, it says Arizona Attorney General sues RealPage multiple landlords. Interesting. Says the state alleges that the firm's revenue management software compiles competitively sensitive lease data on pricing and occupancy. You see, Arizona Attorney General and announced a lawsuit against RealPage and 9 apartment landlords last week for allegedly conspiring to illegally raise rents for hundreds of thousands of renters in Phoenix and Tucson metro areas. The state of Arizona alleged that Richardson text-based company revenue management software compiles competitively sensitive lease data on pricing and occupancy. The software and analytics firm then directs the landlords on which apartments to rent out and at what price, according to the complaint. May said that RealPage's alleged conspiracy with the 9 landlords violate both the Arizona Uniform State Antitrust Act and the Arizona Consumer Fraud Act. The antitrust law prohibits conspiracies and restraint of trade and any attempts to establish monopolies on control of price fixes, while the consumer fraud statute makes it unlawful for companies to engage in deceptive or unfair acts or practices or to conceal or suppress material facts in connection with the sale. Interesting. Thank you very much for this, Roger. I'll share this into the chat. And then also I will share also the next link as well. Thank you very much for sending that to me. That's going to be interesting to talk about. Creative Experiment says RealPage treats apartments like hotels, raising rent until 4% of rooms are empty. The higher the rent, the more that pays for empty rooms. Interesting. Okay. So let me share this. Now this is going to be interesting. Let me see. So it says new and landmark suit. The Justice Department has charged Apple with running an illegal monopoly over smartphone markets in the United States. The man behind it is Jonathan Cantor, head of the Department of Justice Antitrust Division. He's corporate America's worst nightmare. Oh my stars and stripes. Oh, this may have to be my next story when I come back. Oh my Lord. Oh, thank you so much for this. Oh, Roger. Oh, Lord. Oh, look, Apple has needed its comeuppance for a long time. Not to mention what's going on in Congo right now with the slave labor that's happening there. Oh my goodness. Apple needs to be taken over by the workers. I don't care what nobody says. Apple, look, I'm telling you right now, that needs to happen. Yes, Raziel. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Oh, yes. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that, Roger. Appreciate it, brother. You keep looking out for your little brother out here in these streets. All right. Okay. So, I have to get going because, well, I'm in a crisis myself right now. But just to let you guys know, I got a lot of papers over here. I'm gonna be getting into whenever it's going to be a little bit slow because I'm dealing with this housing crisis situation that I'm in right now. If you guys would like to continue to assist me in this, you guys can go either to my PayPal, which you guys can donate to. If you guys like to, the Cash App I have, or if you guys would like to go through Venmo, I'll put those links in the chat. If you guys would still like to assist me with that, because I am still trying to. Essentially, we have 60 days to move because the landlord wants to sell the condo that we live in, and we don't know where we're gonna go. And the crazy part about it is, I'm literally trying to also get on the transplant list so that I can get a kidney transplant, and now I have to slow that down in order to be able to make sure I have a place to live, which is crazy. And so I'm literally suffering right now because I'm essentially poor. And now we have to look for a place. And most 99% of the places are going to be higher than what we're paying rent right now. So that's what we're going through. So if anybody wants to assist in that, you guys can do that as well. If you guys would like to assist, it is deeply appreciated. So here is the Cash App link, and then also I'll put the link in the Venmo. If you guys want the PayPal link, that's in the description already, if you guys would like to. So that's that there. So thank you so very much as well. Now, for you guys, for content, it may be a little bit slow, but eventually I will get back to it. I appreciate you guys being very patient with me. But we're going to continue in the reading of Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. So we're continuing that reading as well. Then we'll continue in the reading of Water in the Spirit by Melodoma Patrice Somé. So we're going to continue in the reading of that as soon as I can get to it. And then we're going to continue the reading of The Will to Change by Bell Hooks as well. I cannot wait to get back into these books. It's just going to be a little bit slower because of this housing crisis situation that I'm dealing with. But rest assured that it will be done. So thank you so very much for your patience as well. To all the people, and just a big thank you and a shout out to everybody that's been assisting with me, especially in this issue. The people who have been sending me well wishes, and people have been just being there for me, just even emotionally. This has been a very deeply trying time for me and my family. And then a big shout out to all of my family that has also been coming together to assist and, helping me to be able to, help pack and get things done. And so, yeah, it just has been very heartening. So I just want to say that I appreciate all of you for sticking with me in this trying time. I also want to say a big thank you to Dr. Jill Stein for joining me today. This means the world to me because I've been wanting to have her on for quite some time, and it finally happened. So I think that it is so awesome that I was able to have this discussion with her. And I cannot wait to talk to her more in the near future, because ultimately we need to have more of these deeper conversations as well. So with that being said, I have a video that I want to close out with, because I think it's important that we, put our focus on the people who are I want to focus more on the people who are suffering in this country and hear from their voices. And like I always say, I want to amplify the voices of people who are not heard, even though they are speaking in this country. And so I just want to make sure that I, amplify their voices as well, because it's not always about me and it's not always about a singular person. It's about those of us collectively. We have to see ourselves and other people, even people who we may deem different. I don't care if that person is disabled. I don't care if that person is trans. I don't care if that person is a different gender. I don't care if that person is a different profession. See yourself in other people and unite with them in order to have a better world for all of us. That's one of the goals of this channel, and I hope that you guys stay with me in that fight. Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them, if the doctor deems it to be okay for you. And keep yourself up as possible and be kind to one another. You never know what people are going through. Like, look at me, look what I'm going through. Of course, your kind words help me. Also do that for other people. Even if you may be frustrated with that person, try to be as kind as you possibly can, because you never know, right? I think that's important. So let me share this. This is going to be my closing video. Please keep in mind to always not just think about other people who may be less privileged than you, but also acknowledge their presence. Let them know that they matter. And also remember that you matter too. So, mwah, forehead kisses. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you to all the patrons on Patreon, anybody that send me mutual aid. And you guys have yourself a great night. I'll see you in the next one. And peace out.
How it feels to sleep on the fridge? Do you know how it feels to not be able to get back in society? You know, first offender. You know, and now they discriminate on me as a homeless person everywhere I go, everywhere I sit. Sometimes I get arrested just for walking up the street and say something to somebody, and the cop see me from a distance, and he said I asked a person for some money. He has to have his good ears to tell me that I asked someone for some money. He's 150 feet away. You know, I got nobody right now on these streets but God. And that's why I ask people for help. Because the Bible says, you deny me. Jesus says that you deny me, you deny him. And I stand on that word. You know, there's been some cold nights out here and some hot days. And can you imagine what I'm going through? What makes me so different from you? What makes you better than me?
Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.